Welcome to The Sears Show. Join us as we explore medicine, health, mental health, mindset, and fitness, guided by lifelong seeker of knowledge, Sifu Raphael. He will lead us on a transformative journey with groundbreaking insights and extraordinary guests from around the world. Together, we'll dive into the latest holistic approaches to well-being and the profound connections between mind, body, and soul. Sifu Raphael's expertise in positive thinking, resilience, and personal growth will inspire you to reach new heights. Get ready for the Sears Show. It's time to embrace a brighter, healthier, and more empowered future.
5, 4, 0.
Greg, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me on the Sears Show. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. What an intro.
Thank you, buddy. So, yesterday was Halloween, and I'm seeing you have one of your friends behind you.
That's it.
So, today I want to definitely talk about with you about movement, right? And how important that is for all of us, no matter your age, whether you're a child, you're an adult, or you're a senior citizen, if you will. How important is that?
It's certainly important. We got to get our joints moving through their full range of motion, and definitely an aspect of continuing to play probably is the most important thing, I would say.
Always keep moving. And so is that so that we can stay healthy, or is it just because we want to keep our joints?
Well, I
Is
think
there
that,
correlation?
the concept of play is so multifaceted, and moving is so multifaceted for our minds, for our bodies, for our souls. We just need to keep moving and doing things we like. And yeah, for sure, it's going to keep our bodies healthy because it's going to pump fluids to our body, not only for our circulatory system, but our joints need to move through their whole range of motion. Just think about a creaky door hinge. If that door isn't moving and lubricating the joint, then eventually it starts to get a little rusty, and that starts to happen with a lot of us if we're not going through our full range of motion throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have Carl. Carl, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you coming here with us. So today the topic is movement, and as you can tell, Greg up above us, above you where you are, he has a skeleton there, and movement is so critical. And with what you do, if you don't move, you're dead.
Oh, exactly. You need to. Well, you need to move for sure, especially when you're speaking, whether you're on camera, whether you're on a stage, it doesn't really matter. You still need to be moving and alive. Well, if you're not alive, you're not moving, right? So
Exactly.
So Greg, definitely thank you for I've seen one of those before. I think last time I was at my chiropractor's office, I think he
Yeah, well, I'm a physical therapist, so it would make sense.
yeah, for sure.
I saw some walking around yesterday, being that it was Halloween. So tell us a little bit about how important it is for a person to move in business, Carl, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, movement in the physical sense is very important, of course, but movement in business, I think, is something that's a little bit different. I think we think of it as different, but it still goes back to the physical movement. We need to physically move so that our business will move forward, because if we're not eating properly, getting the exercise that we need, and really living a healthier lifestyle than maybe we did when we were 21, we might not be as successful in business as we'd like to be. But business movement, I think, is slightly different, only because that to get from point A to point B, there are some exercises or things you need to do that are above and beyond what maybe you've been accustomed to. So my background, for example, I spent several years in the media world, radio broadcasting, to be quite clear. And, shifting into a place where you're your own boss versus having a boss telling you what to do changes the movement and changes the things you do daily in your business. You really have to be disciplined to, for example, hire a coach. That was one of the first things I did, I think, so that I would know what to do. So I would have those tools and those things that I would every day make sure I do when I get up in the morning, and be consistent so that the business moves forward. And it's different for each business, but there's so many similarities because of how, when you talk to people who are in business and have been in business for several years, they'll say they attune their success to totally doing something different than what they were doing when they were employed by somebody else, number one, but then also getting the advice from a coach, really shifting their mindset. And shifting your mindset, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that people need to do. So one of the movements is really doing something with this, as opposed to just, again, when you're working for somebody else, you punch the clock and you put in your time and you get a paycheck every 2 weeks or whenever your schedule is, and that's it. But in business, it's very different.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about play, Greg, and we can all talk about how important playing is in business and in our physical being. But one of the things that we want to consider is there's different ways that we can play, right? When we were 8 years old compared to when we're 38 years old or 48 or 58 or 88, right? There's different ways that we can play both in business and in our physical aspects. So, Greg, a lot of people want to be able to move as if they were still 21, but they also can get hurt. Talk to us about that too, because I believe that that's an important aspect.
Well, we're all sitting in something called the chair right now, and that chair is kind of what gets people into trouble. And I'm not going to demonize sitting, the act of sitting itself. It's kind of like how we sit. And I'll paint out a picture of how most people go through life. You're a super rambunctious kid when you're younger. You start to get domesticated into the chair at the age of grade 1, so we'll say 7, 8 years old. And then you accumulate more and more time sitting, but all on the way, you're still playing and you're still moving, and it's unstructured. It's free flowing. It's 3 dimensions. And then high school comes around and you're, again, more and more time, and maybe you're still participating in that sport that you enjoy, but it starts to still become a bit more regimented. And then we hit university, and oftentimes that's when all play goes away unless you happen to be a part of a sport. And that's when people think they need to go to the gym, right? And so you go to the gym and it becomes this very like robotic ways of moving where we're up and we're down, squats, deadlifts, push-ups, pull-ups, everything is one dimension. And we start to lose that element of 3D. And so, you reach outside your comfort zone, I start to hurt my back. And so what happens is you start to accumulate more and more injuries, and we're not addressing those injuries. You kind of wait. Okay, the pain feels like it's gone away. And then you go back to your regular activity as if you had the same exact body as if prior to the injury. And so you show up in the same way because you want to grind. And so we have this kind of all or nothing attitude. I'm going to sit 12 to 16 hours a day at my, studying away, and then eventually at a job. And most jobs tend to be sitting. Maybe you're lucky if you move around in your job. But then, you end up going back to pushing it super hard when you're in the gym or at your sport, if you do happen to play be that weekend warrior. And all of a sudden you start to get into trouble because you have to do the work and kind of like the outside work outside the gym, or at least have your movement practice will look a lot more athletic and natural in terms of crawling on the ground, doing weird things, moving in 3 dimensions. And like I've explored all these types of things, and I feel so much better when I'm moving in a way that allows me to take my body through its full possible, like all the possibilities. Sitting on the floor, not sitting in the chair all the time. I mean, there's endless possibilities you go down, but the whole idea is that we have to appreciate that as we get into the domestication of the 9-to-5 job, or even if you're working for yourself, you don't tend to move all day long. And it's like we reserve one little tiny hour for the day, and we end up moving like robots in that 1 hour, and then we get into trouble from there.
Mm. You know, you just reminded me of that image of evolution of man when they show the monkey and it goes all the way to standing to the man. I think we're going backwards, aren't we?
Yeah.
Currently.
Well, you should continue that image you see from online, and it's then, the very rounded spine and someone just sitting at a computer, and basically, eventually we'll just be aliens because we don't need a body anymore. We'll just have a big head and no limbs.
Yeah, but you know what happens? I think technology has also made us sit at a desk more, because back in the day, you used to go to a job, you sat at a desk. You came home, you didn't sit at a desk anymore, right? But now why do we sit at a desk when we come home? Is because we're going online. So we're now going back to this rounded shoulder, body's not. So instead of sitting back, right, feeling that longness, if you will. So technology is to blame, because what I'm seeing also is a lot of neck stuff, right? So a lot of people are there on their cell phones. They're down like this, looking down. Um, we've seen 1,000 people have accidents because of cell phones, whether they're walking, driving, or whatnot. And then what winds up happening is, so technology has helped us in so many different ways, but it also has hurt us because of the way it makes us move our bodies, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So what are some drills that you would say would be good for me and Carl even? Well, listen, I'm a functional fitness guy. So every morning I work out. I already posted well, actually I didn't post it yet, but I did my video earlier this morning, and I know it's 7:30ish around here for us. But every morning, around 5:30, I'm working out. And I don't just go and lift weights. I do TRX, I do kettlebells, I do functional type fitness. I'm running, I'm kicking, I'm doing things on the floor. I'm getting up, I'm doing get ups, I'm doing all kinds of different things. So I do work out in that 3D function, if you will. But what happens if I didn't? How would I be able to benefit from something that you're about to tell us, so that I can be more upright?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to counter this for 1 second. It's going to be actually funny, but I actually promote my clients to slouch. And
No,
let me
really.
go into the devils and the details in this.
Let's do it, Carl. Okay, we're
Slouching.
here.
Well, so think about the idea of what you've been told your whole life. Sit up straight, stand up straight. Good posture means your chest up and your shoulders down and back. Okay. Now I invite both of you to take your hands together and squeeze them as hard as you can. Okay. Now we're gonna go for like 5-10 seconds. Okay. Now I'm gonna now ask you to do this for 12 hours. I don't think that's gonna be very possible, right? You guys can relax. So the thing is, if we all like exaggerate good posture for a second, I'm putting that in quotation marks for a sec, because when we go into these really upright postures, what tends to happen for most people is that they're basically engaging their lower back to create this uprightness. And what happens over here is that, think about the idea. If I asked you to do this for 12 hours, you'd be like, get out of here. That's impossible. Well, when we do that with our lower backs, our backs are the same thing. They don't want to be engaged 24 hours of the day. Now, if we teleported ourselves over to India for a second, I was there 10 years ago, we'll see that 80-year-olds could do an ass to grass squat. They're very comfortable sitting in a very low squat position. Now, I don't know about the two of you, but I know that most of my clients, even at 25 years old, don't have the capacity to do a deep squat. So what is happening in a deep squat position for the spine? It's actually rounded and relaxed. The thing is, when we go and we sit up in our good postures, and then all of a sudden we get like lost in our emails, what happens is we don't allow the body to relax. It's kind of just like the head that comes forward. So inherently, slouching and relaxing the whole rib cage, allowing your lower back to relax and having a back that's chilled, and rather than engaged 24/7, is actually okay. It's just that we don't want our head poking 16 inches from front of our bodies, and we learn how to be more relaxed. Because most of the people I know, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm already slouched. But then when I feel their lower back and how they're actually sitting, they don't know how to fully just lengthen like the position of a deep squat. So I know that kind of probably inherently, a lot of my mentors talk about like 6 hours versus 6 reps. Well, yeah, I could give all sorts of exercises. And I'm not saying extending the spine is bad. It's how you extend the spine, because most people just crank in their lower back rather than learning how to get extension through the entire spine. But then again, inherently the other way, like when people go to yoga, whenever they touch their toes, they're told to keep their back straight. But when I'm bending down to touch my toes, I would want my spine to flex. Just like when I extend my back, I want my spine to extend. So we want to just expose the spine to both ends of ranges of motion. But when it comes to sitting, we shouldn't be engaged in a sitting position. It should be allowing things to relax in a way where we feel the low back relax.
Love it, love it. One of the things I do often is we hold squats, right? Because I teach Kung Fu also. And the other thing that I do is I hang.
Yeah.
So I have a bar in my place, and it's high, so people have to jump to get it, right? They're hanging. And I even have little kids do it. And the parents look and they're like, I want to do that. I'm like, okay. I said, so I get a chair and I get them to do that. And then some parents can hold it literally 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, their kids are holding it for over a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they're not used to doing that. And I believe that. And I say to them, hanging is one of the best things you can do for your body. And you can tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
but
true.
it is hanging because it naturally is pulling you, right? It's elongating you in a natural way. And then the squats are bringing blood flow through your body, right? Because also holding it, all of a sudden their legs start to shake. And so all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that sitting in this position would be so painful and so hard to do. All of a sudden they start to shake and they're like, hey, they get up. And I'm like, why'd you get up? Well, my legs started to shake. I said, that's all in here. So when we consider the way we move our bodies, it's also the way we move our intentions, I believe. And Carl, you could probably chime in on this. And I know that when we think business, we think of where we want to go as a human being. I think its intentions have to, for me, they definitely have to be a big part of how we play in the world, whether it's in fitness, it's in business, it's in our personal life.
100%. And I just have to say, Greg, that you just defined my workday 100%. Spot on. Thank you very much. But no, I do believe that I think that you have to come in with the right intention, but I think you also have to have some idea as to where you're going. You just can't throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. But how many entrepreneurs, especially the new ones, fresh out, right? And Sifu, you've probably seen it. Greg, I don't know about yourself, but certainly, Sifu, I'm sure you've seen it where they're new in this. They have the entrepreneurial spirit because they're brand new and they're willing to try anything and everything, and anything and everything isn't going to get them to where they want to be, because they try to be everything to everyone without even knowing what their intention is. Be that, we talk about Simon Sinek. What's your why? Well, the why isn't just the why for, well, I want to do it for my family. Okay, that's a huge why, but what's the bigger why? What's the spiritual why? What is it that it'll bring you? Because when we just say we're going to do it for our family, well, any job can give you enough income to support a family if you get the right job. So what's the entrepreneurial spirit difference in that? And what's the intention behind it? And I think if you go in with the right intention, then you're going to get way different results. And for me, if you don't mind me sharing this, for me, it was a shift with a word.
Mm.
And I shifted it from, and shifting, not just one word, there were probably several, but one word that I struggled with was sales. And
Mm.
it would follow up with, I hate sales. I hate sales. Can't do sales. Can't do sales. But what I can do is service.
Mm.
So I don't have sales calls anymore. I have service calls. That's
Nice.
what, and that is a big difference in shifting your exercise, the patterns of the neurons as they're firing here, much like when you're in your exercise mode in the gym. And by the way, I can't do yoga. I turn myself into a human chicken bone, so I don't know. But anyways, but certainly, but when we're doing that entrepreneurial thing, we need to shift this with intention, and it'll be different for every person. And a really good coach will help you navigate to figure out what that bigger intention is. And it'll shift. It'll shift as you get, deeper into it. It'll shift with age. It'll shift with as the industry you're in or the business that you have as it shifts. So the intentions will continually shift. You just don't, it's not a set it and forget it thing. Go, oh, I
Mm.
did that 20 years ago. It'll continuously shift and evolve as you do, which is part of the exciting thing too. But it's also a trepidation, I think, for a lot of people in business or in that entrepreneurial space, is they still have that built in their DNA, that fight or flight mode. Oh my goodness, it's something new, it's something different. Oh, wait a minute. But once you know that it's a constant shift, you get comfortable with that, being uncomfortable. And now you can continue with that intention moving forward.
Oh, I love it. And I love the shift in the word, the one word.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's so many different words we can shift in. But one of the things that I've always told people when I'm training somebody to even be a salesperson, right? I always say to them, tell me how you were as a kid. How did you get what you wanted? When mom said no, did you go to dad? And dad said no, did you go back to mom? And if that didn't work, did you go to grandma, grandpa? How did you were persistent, right? And so children, to me, are probably the best salespeople in the world because they have one thing that we kind of lose a little bit when we get older, and that's the persistence.
Mhm.
We want what we want, but we sometimes forget how to keep asking for it. A child doesn't forget. You may tell a child no today. Guess what? Come tomorrow, that child's asking you. They may ask even differently. They may say, "Hey, Dad, can I have that toy car?" And like, no, you can't have it. Okay. Hey, Dad, can I? What do I need to do to get that toy car? Can I take out the trash? I'm going to take out the trash, or I'm going to do this, or hey, it doesn't really cost that much money. I just want that toy car. So they keep going over and over and over again, but they don't give up. And I believe that's the persistence
Mhm.
that children have. But as adults, what do we do to a child? We knock it out of them, right? Don't we? We go, stop that. Don't do that. And one of the things is we keep, especially inquisitive children, we keep saying, stop asking me that. Don't ask me that. Stop, 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 stop. So we keep halting their inquisitiveness. And I think that's harmful along the lines because now people become, I don't want to ask because I'll be reprimanded or I'll be told I'm no good or I can't do that. So the same thing I think happens when we're adults and we're all entrepreneurs because Greg would not be sitting there with that cute, handsome guy or girl, whoever it is, right? Without him taking a chance
Yeah.
to be that persistent because an entrepreneur is someone who may have been told no or they got tired of doing it the other person's way,
Mhm.
right? Because what's an entrepreneur? It's somebody who said, I'm not going to work for other people anymore. I'm going to create my own,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you, Greg, every one of us made a decision, when we decided to go and do something, it could be the same thing that our neighbor is doing, but it's our own, right? And that persistence of saying, I'm going to keep doing it over and over again. But sometimes we become stubborn, and that's where the lack of movement comes in. And today we're talking about movement, where we don't have a coach. We don't have that person to guide us because we want to do it all on our own. But man, I got to tell you, the best companies in the world, even the best coaches in the world, have a coach. You can't move without asking someone, hey, how was that move? How did I do that? Right? So, Greg, you know how important, and I'm sure you assess your clients when they come in, they go, oh, my back hurts. And you don't go, okay, let's only fix your back. You probably go into deeper, right, assessments of what they do. Because when I have somebody come in, one of the things I do, whether it's a business client or a physical fitness type of client, I always ask about their movements. And it's, what'd you do this morning? How did you do this? And what have you been doing? So for me, it's always about that inquisitiveness. How are you? And what are you doing?
Yeah,
Take
absolutely.
it away.
Yeah, well, like the whole idea is that I really help people get to the root cause of their pain by teaching their whole body to work in different ways together in that 3 dimensions that we talked about. And I had dealt with years and years of chronic pain myself, unfortunately, from a simple ankle sprain that never healed properly. And when I was seeking out treatment, it was site of pain equals site of problem. So they would focus on my ankle, and it was just lots of hands-on therapy and isolated band exercises and towel raises and calf curls, whatever, all the classic things that people are given. And I was suffering from years and years of pain, and eventually I got surgery, and that surgery only led to more pain. I had hip pain and back pain. And I kept seeking out different people, but everyone I would go to, it was always these very isolated approaches. And I knew I needed to take a deeper dive in order to understand the body and figure out what's going on, because what I was learning in school, in physical therapy school, was the exact same treatment that I was being given, and I knew it wasn't working. And so I started to take a deeper dive, and I sought out mentors. So most of my mentors are out of the UK, so Ireland and England and Australia, and just continuing education course after continuing education course of like, who knows the most about the foot? I need to learn from that person. And then that foot person was not just a foot person. They were looking at the whole body and how the skeleton moves and how that impacts the way we stand on our feet, and just layering on more understanding. And I start to really go into rabbit holes, but then eventually I had a broader understanding of the body. And fast forward years later, now I couldn't stand barefoot for more than 10 seconds. And now I go on 10-kilometer hikes barefoot myself. I could slack line. So I walk between 2 trees. And I wouldn't say more importantly, but, this acquisition of knowledge has now given me, the experience to now share what I learned along my journey to help others. And so when people have claimed to have tried everything and they've been around the houses, oh, I tried this. I'm like, well, unfortunately, you haven't really even scraped the surface, because I know what the standard of the industry is, unfortunately, is not that great. And there are, select few really good physical therapists or just movement coaches. Like, I don't care what someone's title is. I care about their approach. And so now I've helped people who've dealt with years and years of pain get back to doing the things they love, because it was my own journey that forced me to, really say, okay, well, what are the strategies that are most effective, and what can I throw out? And so, that vetting process got me to a place where, I feel great in my body now, and I have a much better understanding of the clients in front of me.
I love the deep work you did, because had you not gotten hurt, you'd be like every other physical
I was
therapist out
probably
there.
not going to go into physio, to be honest. I was thinking about going into medicine, and, I knew I wanted to be in the healthcare industry. And then I was so numb to everything else, because I was in chronic pain constantly, and I wanted to, heal what was going on. So that shifted me from medicine into physical therapy.
I also love the fact that you sought out different types of experts, right? And I believe, Carl, you can definitely jump in on this, because
Yeah.
not everyone is going to resonate with what you have to offer, right? And therefore, we can't, and we talked about it earlier, we can't work with every single individual
Yeah.
that comes in front of us. For me, it's about, are you, let's admit that, are you going to take this pill, right? Are you going to take the red pill or the blue pill, right? Which truth do you want,
Oh, gee.
right? So it's all about the truth. Are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to be coachable? Because a lot of people who approach the three of us, they already have a perceived outcome of what they want, yet they don't know how to get it. So they also come with a perceived notion of, well, I want to hire you as my coach, but this is how we're going to do it. And like, why you want me? You don't need me, right?
Yeah.
Or do you?
Yeah, it's so true. And I'll touch on that in just a sec. But Greg, one of the things I wanted to mention, just as you were talking about, you sought, overseas to talk to people from other parts of the world. Myself and my spouse went to Europe. It was our first trip overseas, and we walked everywhere. Anyone that's been to Europe knows that it's cycling, it's walking, and very few people drive, unlike in North America, where, especially in more rural areas, where you drive everywhere. I live in a small town that's 30 kilometers away from the largest community, and no bus system. It's not like
Mm.
New York City or Toronto or any large centers. So you walk or you cycle, right? But even in the larger centers, you walk or you cycle. Very few people drive. So in walking, one of the things I noticed was that I felt better walking on some of those old cobblestone sidewalks
For sure.
that are, I don't know how many hundreds of years old. Because, Greg, when you were talking about the movement and the different positions that your body goes in as you're walking on, different terrains and such, well, some of those sidewalks have been around for hundreds of years, as I said, as opposed to walking on flat pavement sidewalks all the time. And I came home and I was all full of energy because I wanted to do the same thing. And everything started to hurt again because I'm walking on the same terrain that I had been walking on before. So just wanted to mention that because, man, that is so true. And it's so true in business as well, Sifu, as you mentioned that, we go in with this preconceived notion based on experience of not only what we want, but what we think the answers should be. So when we ask a question, and I have an example of this, when you ask a question of a coach or somebody in authority, you're going in thinking that you already know what the answer is going to be in some cases, right? Unless you're totally oblivious and you really don't know the answer. But I had a speaker trainer, and I remember asking him some fairly specific questions, and I knew what I thought the answer should be or where the answer would go. And he was always notorious for answering not the question I wanted to hear, but the question the answer to the question I needed to hear. So he was always good at giving the answer to not what my problem was, but what I needed to do, if that makes sense. And because it is a difference. And I think that we approach business sometimes that way. And I think sometimes when, for example, I have clients who come to me in the podcasting space and say, "Hey, we'd love you to work on our show." And I say, "Great, I'd love to work on your show." And I'll ask them questions or I'll give them answers that they didn't even think about. Because when people come to the space, they're not thinking about strategy. They're not thinking about a marketing strategy. In a lot of cases, they're thinking about, I want to do a show as popular as Sifu's is, and I want it to make a ton of money. Well, when we shift their belief, all of a sudden, now they either run away or they say, "Oh, I didn't think of it that way. I didn't think of an opportunity like this, like we all have today, as a speaking opportunity, as an opportunity to share my expertise. I didn't think of it that way. I thought of it as my coach said I needed a podcast. I've listened to a few of them. I'm just going to go do it." They don't see the bigger picture and they don't seek the advice far enough or they seek it out from people who don't know, if that makes
Mhm.
sense too.
Mhm.
Because I've had some individuals come to me that have said, yeah, I took this thing, I saw a webinar and they said I could do this, this, and this. And I say, well, that's great. You can, but that's not what you need. It's like going to the doctor and say, well, I've got these symptoms, and doctor could give you a pill, but the doctor could also give you, an exercise regimen or a better diet if that's really what you need, as opposed to a pill. But I think
Mhm.
sometimes we're only seeking out the pill solution based on what we think we want.
Yeah, without a doubt. One of the things I'd love for you to put um, your link in the private chat so we can share with everybody. And by the way, this happens to be Greg's. And one of the things that we want you to do is listen, Greg, you if you were closer to me, man, we'd be going out to lunches and stuff all the time because I would be picking your brain all the time because of your expertise, right? But hey, you never know. We may still do that. But when we consider all of the different things that we can help people with, we can only help them if they're willing to listen to what we want to say. And thank you for those kind words, Carl, for saying it as popular as my show. You know why I do this show? I do this show because not the money, it's the connections. And it's because I want to bring people like both of you into my community, into the world, because my purpose in life has been to, and I realize a lot of people go throughout their whole lives and go, oh, I don't know what my purpose is.
Mhm.
My purpose, my whole life has been to help people. That's it. And it doesn't matter if it's helping them with directions, right? Or helping them buy something, or helping them start a new business, or helping them get fit, or helping them defend themselves. So, one of the things that I always tell parents is if I teach your child one move, and that can save their life from either getting raped or killed, then I've done my job. And so that's why when parents go, well, my son wants to go and do soccer. I'm like, great. It's beautiful. I love soccer. I used to play soccer. Let me ask you, will soccer teach them how to defend their life? No. I said, well, let them do soccer, but don't quit what I'm teaching them. Because what I'm teaching them will last a lifetime.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And when we consider what you're both doing, it's something to empower another person. Greg, you're teaching people how to function better when they come with whatever kind of pain they have. You're not just saying, hey, you know what? Here's here's a pill, or do this one exercise and it'll take it all away
Mhm.
and you'll be fine for the rest of your life. Because we constantly have to move, whether it's in our businesses, personal lives, or in our physicality, in order to have that bliss, if you will, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about helping people. I think when people are in pain, they're vulnerable and they're ready to make a change. And it's obviously, how they're going to be guided along that change, in the classic physical therapy clinic where they're lying on a table and the onus of responsibility is on the therapist to fix me type thing and, just rub out that pain. And while that obviously sounds great and it's an
Mm,
easier kind of direction, what they'll very soon discover is 3 days later, the pain comes back and then they go again. And it's this like, merry-go-round wheel of short-term pain fix solutions. And, clearly it's like, well, the Band-Aid solution doesn't work, but they haven't found the right person to guide them along the way. And so when people come to me, I know that they're ready to make a change. And like you said, I'm really helping people find their why. Like, why do you want to get it? Like, why, if I've got a magic wand, what's your main goal for coming to see me? And they'll be like, I want to get out of pain, fix me. all right, we could, let's go and grab some vodka and we'll chug that vodka and, pain's gone. Like, what is this pain stopping you from doing? Well, like, I just don't like, no, like we have to keep asking the question and keep getting into the why, the why, the why. Well, I can't run anymore. And the running meant that I'm, more social and now my relationships are suffering, like whatever it might be. But the key thing is that once they're connected to their why, they're much more likely to do what I'm asking them to do. Also, oftentimes people, in my opinion, just don't do the exercises that people are prescribing them to do because they don't feel a change. Like things actually have to matter. Like, the interventions that I give in my clinic, it's a test, retest. Something's got to change immediately, and that person's got to be connected. Oh my God. I actually want, I don't know if I necessarily want people to feel weak, but I want them to be like, oh, this is challenging. And like often I get people quivering in my clinic, like their body starts, like you said with your squatting example. But the whole idea is I'm seeking and understanding, like, what's that body's current movement strategy and how can I facilitate and feed in new movement into their system so that all of a sudden, they're able to access rotation again or side bending, whatever it might be, depending on the person in front of me. And very profound changes can happen very quickly when you're doing this more holistic, full body approach.
Love it. Love it. That is so true when we consider the why. Why do you want to accomplish this? What's important to you? And you brought it up earlier, Carl, and you said your why may be, I want to do it for my family, but that's a bigger why. And I think one of the things, as coaches, one of the things that we ask is why once, then we ask why twice, then 3 times, then 4 times, then 5 times, sometimes even 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. And the reason we do that is to get to the deeper root of the why. Because people, they live in the surface. I see that a lot of people live in the surface. They don't live deeply. They don't. I'm gonna go to it. They don't love deeply, right? They're superficial. Hey, I love my spouse, and wow, look at that car. I love that car, and wow, I love this meal. So the word love no longer means love. It just means like. And because they love everything, it really means they like everything. So when we go deeper is, what do you really love?
Yeah.
Right? So
I love what you're saying.
Yeah, thank you. Now you're very funny, aren't you? I love that you said that.
But I think part of it, Sifu, is we live in this world now where it's instant gratification for everything. And I think Greg touched on that a little bit too when he was talking about, people come in and they don't leave bent over, but they leave in this place where they didn't realize that this is where the movement was going to go. And I think in business, or certainly with, when I'm dealing with people in the podcasting space, in the marketing space, they want the instant gratification. They want to build a show. They want to get their 50,000 listeners, and I want to make a boatload of money beyond belief within 5 episodes.
Yeah, right.
And that's not reality. It's kind of like, the analogy of, if you want to lose 20 pounds, I might want to do that, that if you eat a few salads, you'll be fine and you'll lose your 20 pounds. Greg's smiling, going, no, it needs a little more than that. So, but it's the same thing. We're in this instant gratification place. And because of that, when we do start to go deeper, that's when it gets real. And that's when sometimes we don't want to go there, because it means churning up things from our childhood, or relationships that didn't go the way they wanted to, or our failures that we have a hard time getting beyond, because we're still viewing that failure as a negative, not a positive. So when we really start to go deeper into the why, and that's where the magic is. And when you talk to people who have said, when I figured out my why, all of a sudden things started to shift, and quickly. We all want that, but we're in some cases not prepared to go deep enough to really figure out the real why. And I have a colleague and a coach who shared with us recently on a group call, his real why used to be it's for his family. He wanted his family to have a better life than he did. He escaped not 3 world wars, but 3 wars that were happening in various parts of the world. Went from, living with his, I don't know, his parents or foster parents or whatever, to living on the street, to being a millionaire, to losing it all, and then that's when he figured out his why was his family, right? But then when he really started to do the work, the internal work, and this usually means a lot of tears, boxes of Kleenex, right? When he started to do that, he realized that, no, my bigger why was making a difference to every single person who I come into contact with, and giving people the life that I wish I had when I was a kid growing up. So that's when he started his foundation, which has nothing to do with his family, but he started a foundation that you talk to him as a 20-year-old, he wouldn't have thought about doing that. But that's the deeper why. That's the more than 3 salads. That's the more than I want my podcast to make $11 billion. It's more. And Sifu, I know you touched on it, your why you're doing the show. That's a really good why. That's a really good why versus I'm just here because, there's a really good why because there's some purpose behind it.
When we consider the people that we connect with, right? And one of the things is I've always told a story to the kids about the chickens and the eagle. I don't know if you guys ever heard it, right? Like the eagle egg kind of rolls down the mountain and it hatches among the chickens. And then the chickens are there waiting for it to hatch. It comes out and they're like, hey, you're one of us. And all of a sudden the eagle thinks he's a chicken. So what ends up happening is he's hanging around with all the chickens. And then he's always looking up and seeing the eagle soaring. And he's like, oh, man, I wish I can. All the chickens called him out. Like, no, you're a chicken, man. You can't do that. You can't fly like that. Until one day he said, maybe I don't have to listen to these chickens. And then he decided to soar. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people, is that they're hanging out with people who want to hold them down, hold them back. And so if you want financial advice, don't ask your broke friends.
No.
Don't ask your broke friends. If you want to get in shape, don't ask your friends who are not in shape, right? It's all that. If you want to run a successful business, don't ask the guy who's telling you, hey, you know what? You don't want to go that way, or you don't want to go that route. So it's how do we learn to soar when we surround ourselves with chickens?
Yeah, 100%. It's true. I really believe that that's one of the challenges, is that we all have it in us to be in the top 3%. All of us do. But are we willing to the analogy that you gave, are we willing to soar like an eagle, or are we just willing to settle and be a chicken? Just do what everybody else does. I love the analogy you gave, Sifu, about, getting financial advice from your broke friends. There's another one. I'm in the process of learning about real estate investing, not because all of a sudden I've found a calling or anything. It's just I realized that there's an opportunity here, and it's not even so much about the money. It's about the education and learning that there's a whole world and an opportunity there that I didn't even know existed. But when you start to open up your mind to different ideas, things happen. But I would never go and get real estate investing advice from somebody who's only bought a house, because they don't know about real estate investing. They know about buying a house, but they don't know about buying a 20-unit apartment building or a larger complex. They have no knowledge of that. But we automatically do that. Or we listen to those people, right? Or we listen to our parents, right? Who listens to their parents, right? Because they'll say, wow, you shouldn't do that. Well, Dad, you never ran a business. How can you tell me not to run a business, or how, right? So same as the analogy of, you don't ask your overweight or unfit friends how to be physically fit. It doesn't make sense. But we do that so often, not even knowing we're doing it. And that's why we stay stuck and we don't soar like the eagle that I believe is in all of us.
Oh yeah. We're all eagles. We just hatched
Mm.
in the wrong place sometimes. So Greg, I'm sure you can appreciate when people come in and they're like, I'm in this much pain, but my friends told me I should do this instead. I'm sure you probably hear that story a
Well,
thousand
maybe
times
not
over.
friends, but more about what other people told them, or other
Mm,
physical therapists. And so I was just like, the question is like, well, how's that turning out for you? Like, how are you
right.
feeling right now? Oh, I was doing this, and they'll give me the laundry list of all the things that they've done. And then, I'm helping them explore a different route or a different way of thinking about things. And again, as I mentioned, I think when people are like, I have developed a reputation at this point that like when people are coming to see me, they know things are going to be different. So
Mm,
maybe not, depending on the individual, but at the end of the day, it's like they are vulnerable and they are ready to make a change. And for me as a coach, it is still about like small, simple steps. We have to go and think about, all the very popular books that are coming out today, Atomic Habits, Tiny Habits. It is still about empowering people, but
mm,
still coaching them in the way where I don't overwhelm them. So giving them an achievable routine. If they haven't come in and done the routine, it's like there's zero judgment on my end. I just want to help you, of course. So like, don't worry about like, they think like I'm their parent and all of a sudden like I want to make, reprimand them for not doing their activities or, whatever I ask them to do. It's like, okay, let's sit down. Like, where can you fit this into your schedule? Like really dial it in. Cause some people just don't have those skills of, all right, they know how to listen to a calendar or schedule. So let's put into your schedule. Let's like, stack habits, put them where you're already walking or doing your exercise. This might be something to do. So it's just sometimes really just needing to spell things out for people and, take them by the hand and guide them. I am people's guide, not their fixer. So,
mm.
I think it's just a matter of like helping develop tools for people to understand how to create behavior change. So whether you're trying to, eat better or move better or stick to a routine that's going to help you get out of pain, people's intentions might be right, but again, it comes back to like reinforcing their why and also still giving them the tools they need to execute on that plan.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And when it just brought me to think about an old commercial. I don't know what company it was for, but they showed the woman put her bathing suit that she could not fit into on a hanger, and she would come and look at it all the time. And so goals, right? To have a goal. But she was not going to fit in the bathing suit tomorrow if, like Carl said, she ate 3 salads, right? It takes time. And having that vision. So one of the things that when I have a parent come to my martial arts world, and they want their kids because maybe they want discipline, maybe they want this, maybe they want that. I say, okay, before, they're not going to start behaving after my one class or even after a month. But let me ask you, where are they going to practice? And the parents are like, well, I said, no, you need to know where before
Mhm.
you even go home because I want you to designate a place for them. And you also have to put it on the refrigerator. It's time to practice. We give them a worksheet that they actually have to practice, except on the days they come to class, we'll consider that practice, but it's a 7-day sheet. And I said, because if you want your child to change, it has to become a habit.
Mhm.
If you want if you want to build that new business, you have to build the business of whatever it is, online business, a physical mortar, a brick and mortar business. You have to build the business of maybe making sure the bathrooms are clean, making sure that you're sending out your emails, making sure. So you have to create, and you talked about that, creating these habits and this vision of where these are going to take place. Because I believe that's an important aspect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't happen overnight, right? I think one of the first things that I did to help myself was after I got a coach, actually a couple of them, one of my coaches walked me through setting up my calendar setting up my day-to-day schedule. And I remember sitting there thinking, why do I have to do this? This is stupid. Right? Why am I doing this? Because if you don't, then every day it's chaos because you don't know what to do when. You don't know what the top 3 priorities are for that day. You don't block off lunch. I had a coach say the 2 things you book first every year, your vacation, and make sure you block off lunch, right? Because those are the things that we're okay in the 97% of us to just let slide, right? We're okay to let them all slide. But when you're really taking your business seriously, you recognize that lunch is important and you recognize that vacation, downtime, refreshing, recharging, that's important too. So that certainly becomes habitual. My biggest challenge is when people come into the space and the first thing they do, and I think we're all guilty of it, is their first resource is expert Google. Doesn't matter what how many times when you've got an illness, you go to Dr. Google. When you're looking to figure out how to lose weight, you go to Dr. Google. You're looking how to move and what exercises you should do, you go to Dr. Google. You're looking to figure out how to set up a podcast, you go to Podcast Google. And all of the information, good and bad, is there. The actual path, though, to get it all done efficiently isn't, because it doesn't have that touch and 100% realism as, connecting with Greg one-on-one and working with him, connecting with you, Sifu, one-on-one, or myself, and working and doing the work that needs to be done. The information might be there. The good and the bad, or the correct and the incorrect, which is also a hard thing to decipher, but the actual methodology isn't always there. Quite often it's not, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. Gentlemen, I got to tell you, I know we were supposed to be done about, 10 minutes ago, but thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I think this was a really good conversation. I hope anybody who either listened to it or watches it on the replay understands that movement is probably the number one thing you need to do daily, right? Because listen, you can't eat and not have movement, if you know what I mean, right? Then you'll be unhealthy. So you need to take care of your health in all aspects, right? Because movement is there whether you like it or not. In order to get from point A to point B, you can't just, Scotty, bring me up kind of deal. That doesn't work, right? You actually have to get there. So whether it's in business or your physicality, you need to move. So thank you both so much for being here with me today.
Thank you,
Really
Sifu.
appreciate it.
Great
And
conversation.
anybody listening or not listening, share this episode with someone, because I think that somebody who needs a coach, somebody who needs to talk to Greg, somebody who needs to talk to Carl, somebody who needs to talk to me, or somebody who wants all of us, we're all available, right? We're available to help people, because what I'm seeing is the thread going around right now between the 3 of us. Our purpose, and I can see it, is for us to help and guide others.
100%.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah. Got it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Before you guys go, what's one of your takeaways from today's show?
I'll let Carl kick it off.
Oh, how come I have to go first? You were here first. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think the big takeaway is how important movement really is, and it's not just a physical thing; it's a spiritual thing. It's a business thing, and really putting in the work that needs to be done. And it isn't surface. It might start as surface, but it's going to go deeper. And that's when the work gets a little bit, I don't want to say hard, right? Because we don't like the word hard. We think of it as, oh, it's too hard, I can't do that. But when we go deeper, that's where the magic happens.
And I guess I'll say, coaches need coaches. I always say that. And I think that's very, apt no matter where you what discipline, as you're mentioning. Sure, I think like Google. I don't ever. People say, "Oh, I shouldn't be looking on Google." It's like, yeah, go ahead. Like start with your inquisition. Like let's not kill curiosity, as you mentioned, but then to go a layer deeper. And if you're struggling to get where you want to go, well, certainly finding the right person that you connect with is super important.
Yeah. 100%.
Love it. Gentlemen, have yourselves an exceptional day. Don't leave for a second. We're just going to say goodbye to everybody. All right, everybody. Have your best day ever. Take care.